It is now 7 minutes after 10, and Karong Buntaga, we have a very special topic, and I'm very excited about this. We have been talking about this. This has been moved as well many times simply because of the same reason, actually, because of the bad weather. And finally, look at this. In fact, Jed here was complaining about how hot his back is. And that means the weather is great up here at Tops. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jed and Jen of REAVO.
Good morning. Good morning.
Maayong buntag ninyong duha.
Maayong buntag.
Good morning.
It is in fact very sunny today.
Unbelievable,
very nice,
right?
Very nice weather. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But it was, you have to speak really close to the microphone.
Oh.
Like you're almost kissing it, but not quite, right? Kani siya murag, that's been spitted on a million times. So you don't want to touch your lips there because you might instantly die, but just close enough without touching it. Did I just scare you? Oh, okay. First of all, daghang salamat sa inyong pag-ari, Jed. I know you guys are busy. In fact, you have to go in a bit, right? First and foremost, I think it's important because we always like to define terms. Kada bang REAVO ba? Unsam gyud unsa man ang REAVO? Can you please explain to our listeners what is REAVO? Go ahead.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that, Jiggy. So REAVO really, REAVO. It's kind of funny. A lot of people pronounce it as REAVO, REAVO. No, it's really pronounced as REAVO. It's like REVO, and it stands for Rescue or Radio Emergency Assistance Volunteer Organization. So this organization started in 1998 in Manila with a group of friends lang wanting to be, sa radio lang sila, and then eventually became a full-blown fire brigade in Manila. Now, in 2013, when Yolanda hit Cebu, they needed someone to facilitate the relief operations in Cebu. And that's how I got involved and started and founded REAVO Cebu. We did our very first operation in 2013 sa northern town of Cebu, Midillion. And we felt it was very good to help friends, mga kauban na to nga naigo sa Bagyo, Yolanda at the time. And after that, we just pulled like 5 of my friends and said, look, let's start doing relief operations. After that, we don't expect a calamity every day, but, helping others felt really, really good. And we decided, why don't we get ourselves trained? And eventually, we got ourselves trained into medical response, first aid. And we started responding in the streets of Cebu to help the government as well. No? So, mo na siya ang REAVO Jig. So,
that's how it all started.
That's how it all started. Ang ato manggong vision before was I'm a professional. My friends were professionals. They were all working. And our vision is to find a way to give back to the community. So we were inviting professionals at that time to be trained. You always have a bit of free time after you come out of work, on your way home. You should be able to do something for the community. So our goal really was, if I have 5 professionals who are trained with first aid and our vehicles are complete with all the first aid kits we need, in the event that there's an emergency on the road, we would be able to assist the patient already while the ambulance is still coming. And we all know it's very ideal for the ambulance to arrive in 5 to 10 minutes. Di man gyud na mahitabo dali. I mean, reality sa tuwa lisod man gyud. So it's very important for individuals who are trained, who are able to help while the ambulance is still on its way. So mo na among goal. And imagine if you multiply that into 10 times more. So now we have 50 professionals scattered all over Cebu, doing their own thing, bringing their own first aid kits. And if something happens, they're monitoring their radios, and we hear that there's an emergency there, we always have a REAVO volunteer ready and able to assist sa area.
Naghisgot ka, Jed, nga you started during the Yolanda. What typhoon was that?
Yolanda.
Yolanda, right? What year was this, if you don't mind?
2013.
2013, right? So obviously this is the pre-pandemic, di ba?
Pre-pandemic.
So akong pangutana ni Ani is you are preparing yourselves for emergencies, right? But muraog naghan kayong mga emergencies karon nga muraog wala pa ta nakasuway, at least in our lifetime, di ba? For example, katong pandemic, di ba?
Right.
That was a kind of once in a lifetime kaning event in the world's lives and people all over the world, right? So akong pangutanan ni ani, how do you prepare for kaning mga inani nga mga butang nga medyo wala pata nakasuway as far as we're concerned, and perhaps lack the know-how. In fact, there were so many decisions that were made during the pandemic that in hindsight were wrong, di ba? So kana mga inani nga mga butang nga ba nga kaning mga unique and out of this world tragedies and events. How do you prepare for that?
You can only anticipate as much as you want. No? Lisod man gyud, no? I mean, you mentioned earlier the end of times. And throughout my life, when I was in elementary, there was a prediction that the end of the world will be at what date, and it created some sort of scare. And then, a few years ago, it said year 2000. When you reach 2000, but that's going to be another end of the world. And then it creates another scare. One thing to note is wala pa man gyud tao nga nakasuway og end of the world in nibalik.
Okay.
Right? So
although it feels like it's the end of the world sometimes, right? Right? Especially when you're down in the dumps, diba?
when you're waiting for your payday, end of the world.
Exactly.
The day before the payday.
Just the day before. Yeah, exact the mundo.
Yes.
Mo na gitaw og ting bitay, diba?
Ting bitay.
Oh,
That is true.
It's always the end of the world.
Yeah.
That is true. But I think as individuals, we just need to keep anticipating what's the worst that could happen. And one thing I can share to the public, because we're so busy, we're working. Now, if you look at ang typical nga cycle sa working professional, you work, and then you come home, you have dinner, may lang gani if makadungan mo yung family, and then you sleep. And then you wake up again the next day and work. And then may lang gani again, after work, if you have some free time, you do something else. But most likely, you work, sleep, and then weekends, you either sleep, take your family out, and then go back to working. But we always forget to assess, how we our houses, where we live, our homes, and do a risk assessment. So I think one of the things that we need to share with everyone is individually, everybody can do this. Just look at where you live and see what type of calamities could possibly happen where I live. So if you live in the mountains, layo ka sa flood, but you have another set, landslide, mo problema. If you live sa beach area, layo ka sa landslide, pero posible sad ka sa mga storm surges or tsunami and all that stuff. So there are different risks wherever you live. So you need to be able to assess that. And then, what are you going to do if that happens? In the event, in the unlikely event that it will happen, are you prepared? And if not, what are you going to do to prepare? Here's a very, very simple question I ask my friends, mostly working professionals. So we're all out here, like you, Jiggy, you're out here, you're working, and our kids are left at home. If something happens to our kids at home, isa may mutabang nila. Then we say, well, I have the yaya there. I have we have a house help that's there. Okay, but are they trained on first aid? And then we start thinking, bitaw, no? They're not. They can use the phone and call for help, but how many minutes will it take for it to arrive? So what REAVO is really advocating is preparing. Try to prepare in your own houses. And that's why we recruit as many professionals we want to recruit. For one reason, number one, professionals are so busy with work. We want to wake them up to the reality that, hey, nobody's immune to emergency. You could have an emergency at home, and so you need to start looking at this and preparing. Number two, as professionals, it's really nice to be able to share what you have, because we have income, we have means to help others as well.
That is true.
No, so I always tell my friends when we recruit them for REAVO, and we say, some people donate to the church, some people donate to mga other institutions, charities, and all that stuff. Well, they're all great, but with REAVO, you donate to your own organization, you get trained at the same time, and have fun helping others. No, so you get involved as well, instead of just donating in an organization. You get involved, and it's also a family organization. I started REAVO in 2013. From 5 of my friends, it now became about 50 professionals and over 200 youth volunteers with us. My son started with me in when he was 8 years old, and my youngest daughter now, who's 15 years old, and you'll probably get to see her later, started when she was really, really young. I think around 13 or 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
So they start very young because it's a family organization, and our wives, they become part of it, because when your husband in the middle of the night gets a call and wants to go out there and help because there's a traffic accident somewhere and you need to help, the wives need to understand what we're doing, so they become supportive of it. So during fires, emergencies, we the ones who are trained to responds to the fire. The next day, the daughters, the wives, they start packing relief goods.
Right.
And they do the relief operations after. So it's a family organization and everybody knows everybody. Because when there's no emergency, that's when we also prepare and we talk about what else we can do on the humanitarian side. What projects can we have? It's not all about emergency response. It's also helping the community in general. So anyway, very long answer, but that's essentially what REAVO is.
Yeah, but my question was preparation for something unique like the pandemic, right? Because this is something that we have never experienced in our lifetime, diba? So how do you prepare for something like a pandemic? And I'm sure there's going to be something else, maybe not a pandemic, but I'm sure there's going to be something else that'll be completely and totally new because we have all of these different advancements, kaning technology, transportation, air travel, diba? This allows kaning diseases to travel quicker and faster, right? And nobody predicted that except for Bill Gates, and nobody listened to him, right? So, ang kong pangutana ni Ani, Jed, is there a way to prepare for something that you don't know? I know it sounds an oxymoron, right? But is there something? Are all emergencies alike? In other words,
no. Again, I don't think you'll ever get to see the worst of the worst sa emergencies. No? And it's funny you mentioned pandemic because in our company we're very focused on business continuity. And I remembered that being one of the leaders of the company, you need to be trained on how you will handle emergency situations within the company to make sure that the business continues. And one of that was pandemic response. And we've done so many tabletop exercises on
this was
pandemic
before
response.
the pandemic.
This was way before.
Okay,
every year you need to go through a pandemic response training and you will get a sort of an exam.
Wow, okay, that's kind of unique, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but let me be the first to tell you, Jay, I always ace those exams, but when pandemic hit us, I had no clue what was going on. And again, what we...
Why is that? Why is that?
Because what we thought was a pandemic response that we were talking about was kind of like, it's like flu that could affect more than 50% of the office.
It was kind of like that, right?
Right. But not as fatal as we saw.
Okay.
And not as I think that it was way worse than we thought. And even the government applied. And I've spoken to a lot of experts, and even the ones that are really doing this sort of thing in their kanang career said, there was nothing like this in the books. No, walay libro ani. There was no specific manual that taught us what to do during the pandemic, and that's why during the pandemic, klase-klase lang ang gitudlo nga way to avoid. No, there was you have to go and face the sun. You have to heat up your. There's so many other practices.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, in hindsight now, Jed and Jen, what have you learned? Because you get a feeling that we never learned from the pandemic. We get the feeling that we're still doing the same old things over and over again. Traffic is horrible again. And, we're doing all these bad hygiene practices again, at least some people that I see. And, we've stopped wearing masks and we stopped washing our hands and so on and so forth. It doesn't seem like we've learned anything from that tumultuous time in our lives. That was traumatic, right? But still, we didn't learn. So from you guys, because this is your thing, right? Emergency preparedness. What can we do better next time around?
As individuals, you just have to go back to the basics.
Okay.
It was an infection. How do we protect ourselves from that? The best way to do it is to protect the host. Make the host resistant to any kind of infection. How do we do that? How do you do that, Sir Jiggy? You eat well.
You mean the host, meaning me, the host?
Yes.
Or the person?
The person,
okay.
The individual.
Okay.
Live healthy.
Okay.
You sleep well. You eat well. That's how you make the host strong.
Okay.
And resistant to any kind of infection. We get the vaccines that we need on a day regularly. We also limit mode of transmission, just like the daily washing of hands. Not just daily, no. You wash your hands as needed, right? And you mentioned earlier, people stopped doing the protocols because We thought the pandemic is over. COVID is still here. We're even getting reports that there's an increase in COVID admissions lately, but it isn't as fatal as it was because we already know how to deal with it, right? But as individuals, we have to go back to the basics, protect ourselves, prepare our families, what to do, where to evacuate if there's a need to, what is our protocol within the family when somebody gets infected. How do we prevent more transmission or the spread within that the family and within the community? So that's it. And on the bigger side, our healthcare system really needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
We saw how the emergency rooms were packed. My mother had the Delta variant, and we were number 200 in the ER.
In the wait list.
In the wait list.
Okay.
Imagine that. We could have lost her because of that. But thanks to Rafi and REAVO, they were able to provide oxygen at home, and that prolonged.
So you went home instead of lining up because you were number 200? Is that what happened
Because
to you
we were
personally?
number 200, we couldn't get to the emergency room right away. So there was a new program launched by Rafi, but Ramon Abidas Foundation Incorporated
Okay.
with REAVO.
Okay.
We provided oxygen tanks to individuals with COVID while waiting for admission.
Okay.
Just so we can provide. Well, what happened with COVID was the oxygen saturation really dropped really low to fatal numbers. So the oxygen helped bring up the oxygen saturation, the tanks, and they were given for free. So yeah, without volunteer organizations like this and foundations like Rafi, there's probably more fatalities during the COVID situation. So healthcare needs an overhaul. We need more funding. We need legislation to better respond to it. And yeah, that's already beyond our control, but let's get it out there.
Yeah, so kaning COVID, hopefully it won't be happening in the near future, but we will never know, right? It could happen tomorrow.
That's true.
But we will never know because that's just the nature of this of emergencies. We'll never know, right?
That's right. That is right. And I personally felt that there was a delay in closing our borders. Somehow.
When you think about it, COVID is just one big example, and it was a big wake-up call for everybody. I think to go back to your question, Jake, what do we need? It's really mindset. People have to change our mindset because our mindset, kung di maguba, don't fix it.
That's true.
Right? And I remembered, ang concept magod with preparedness is you always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I always keep it in my mind, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And in every little thing we do, we need to apply that mindset. I'll give you an example. Sa balay, you go back and say, well, I don't have a fire extinguisher. It's okay, wa pamagid ni nasunog, sukad-sukad dire. But when are you gonna buy a fire extinguisher kung masunog na? No? You have your kanang light bulb fixed. You know it's already a little bit unsafe, pero main ka nga, okay ra. Kay so far wa man gid na unsa, dugay naman na wa pa man na unsa. And that's our mindset, no? That is our mindset. You drive a car, your tires are so worn out and you start thinking, okay ra. Wa pa man gid na nabuslot, dugay na akong gigamit. But you're not thinking of what could possibly happen.
Yeah,
no?
we become complacent.
We become complacent. And classically, Nishad, it could be the COVID pandemic today. It could be a natural calamity tomorrow. It could be anything else. But if we have the same mindset, di kita mo prepare.
Yeah. They saying tragedies happen because we think every day is the same. And it's also recency bias. Meaning to say, kung gahapon, inaron, then ugma, pareha ra gyapon. Diba? That's always our mindset, right? Pareha ra tanan, every day is the same. But that's why tragedies strike, diba? Because we think everything's going to be the same. But there's also a kind of unhealthy kaning phobia. Maybe mura bitag nasubraan na pod siya ba nga mura siya og ganing what's the term for that
Paranoia.
Paranoid na ka mura kag ganing what's that person hypochondriac maybe mura kag ganing maratol na ba nga wa nakakabaon sa ibuhaton kay you think the emergency is happening now, you know, kanang mga doomsday preppers panalitan di ba nga mag-andam sila sa doomsday di ba Ralph? Daghan kayo sila nga magnaslay underground
bunkers
na yung mga tangke na sa ilawom sa ilang mga balay and so on and so forth, right? I remember one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain. He said, I am an old man and I have learned many tragedies and none of them ever happened. I am an old man. I have heard of great many tragedies and none of them ever happened. So, unsa man gyud healthy mix of preparation but not murag becoming like a doomsday prepper.
Striking the balance is very, very tricky.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
I think that's a very good question because you can never be too prepared. And if you over prepare, mo na mahimo na kang paranoid. And striking the right balance.
How do you do that? Like, unsa man na nimo?
Make sure that what you're doing does not disrupt your relationships.
Ganun naman kay tangki sa imong garahe diya, sir.
Make sure it doesn't isolate you from people.
I think be prepared pero still be connected with reality.
Okay.
And also monitor statistics, identify, rationalize everything. So, again, you can never be too prepared, but understand that if this happens, what's going to be your plan B, plan C, plan D. Also, Jigs, being prepared to a certain extent gives you that peace of mind that if this happens, it's okay because I'm prepared. So, munang very tricky kaya na siya, no? Because sometimes people go overboard. They over-prepare. And di na po siya healthy. I agree with you. It's not. I don't think there's a
especially now ba we have all of these information bubbles bitaw. Nga tanaw nimo nga normal na nang naakay kaning napo ka kaning canyon sa imuhang kwarto.
And safe na ka.
Safe na ka kay basig na lain nga na alien nga moabot diri whatever ba. So and then we are stuck in our bubbles. We think that's normal, right? And lisod kay na tanan. So you're right. I think kanang mga statistics siguro and you have to know where you get your information siguro is also legitimate, right?
Yes.
But I think being a part of a volunteer group like this is one of the ways for you to murag temper your kaning expectations ba of what can possibly happen because you're in that business, right? You're in the business of predicting kaning calamities and tragedies, right? Maganda magin mo every single day. In a way, you're kind of paranoid, right? It's your job to be paranoid, di ba? Nga, what if this happens? What if this happens, right? So akong pangutana sunod siguro ni Ani is this. Karon sige nag-uwan, di ba? And grabe kayong baha ron, di ba? And it's not just here in the Philippines; it's all over the world. I mean, you have to admit that whatever the newsman is telling you, this is a global phenomenon because climate change is real, right? So, Jed and Jen, unsa man na to pag andam aning weather conditions like kanang mga bagyo and floods? You've already done this before. So, what are the first things that you need to prepare and think about?
So again, karon nga sunny day is the right time to prepare, right? We don't prepare kung sugod ng uwan.
It's the furthest from our minds.
Right.
A kaning a typhoon, which is weird because it's in the Burr months and supposedly, right? Daghan na kayong mga inana.
Yeah, I remembered when Odette hit us, Jiggy, again, because we're also guilty sometimes, no? You go back and say, we're in Cebu. Di gyud mi maigong typhoon. Normally, musaka na siya.
Protected by mountains. Napa Santo Niño.
That was a wake-up call.
Yungig kayo.
Favored island gyud sa Pilipinas, di ba?
Yes. And I remembered, we were already hearing in the news that it's become a super typhoon. We were seeing it, and we were like, musaka palagi na. Later, musaka na. And at 5 p.m., I was driving, and everybody was just like, normal.
Chill.
Why problema? Medyo one gamay, but dili kuyaw kaayo. And then I think around 8 to 9 p.m., really ni pick up na gyud ang hangin. And that's when we realized na igot na gyud ita.
Yeah.
The next day, you see the effect niya, then you realize, boanga na igot gyud ita. No? And that's our common gyud na to nga mindset. So, I think, again, goes back to how to prepare is anticipate na lang yun what's the worst that could happen and what's the best preparation you can make. Now, obviously, if you're not able to bring in pila ka tangki sa balay, and you can sometimes you don't have the means to do that. But what's the best preparation you can make? Right? If you cannot fortify your house, can you evacuate? Is there another place you can go to? At least you can save yourself, your loved ones. And again, listen, and I like what you said, Jiggy. It's also understanding where we're getting the information, and that is what we're promoting with the REAVO Emergency Operations Center. So we have a new GC because Facebook already gave us a notice that the community GC is going to go away.
I know, I saw that too. What's up with that? So what's going to happen to that community?
July 6th daw.
October 6th.
October 6th, and
Yes.
it will go away. So we've created a new one,
Yeah.
and we've started inviting folks. So if you've not yet seen the new one,
So where's that?
there's
Is it still on Facebook?
it is
Yes.
still on Facebook. There's a new link that we've been publishing in the old GC, so you can now join the new the new GC. And
Okay,
what-
this is the new REAVO. This is
right, the
okay.
new one, the new REAVO Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
And we are working on something that will make it bigger, better as well, in partnership with Rafi. So we're working on something that would help the community. We've seen the public's response to it, which is very, very positive. We've seen how everybody is now utilizing this platform and just basically getting informed. So we've seen the effect of social media in helping the community, and we will boost that more. So we have a plan which hopefully will be released early next year on doing something bigger for that. But to that effect, what happens is we want to be able to validate information before it goes out.
That's right.
It's very important. So
I think that's very important.
No
right?
fake
Right.
news, Sir
Yeah,
Jiggy.
yeah.
right.
And it's so difficult now to spot fake news because fake news and any news for that matter is always woven with some kind of grain of truth, di ba? So dili mura bag kaning kung dili ka suhito anang butanga, di jud ka makibaw pananglitan na AI na karon nga si kuan imong idol kaayo nga nigsulti paguman AI dito and
Deepfake,
and then
yeah.
you don't know if it's deep fake or not. I don't karon makasako pa ta ka ang kalimutaw nila mura magkaning murag dense kay tanawon ba. Pero eventually they can perfect that because that's always been the problem with CGI, right?
Yes.
The eyeballs. But eventually they can fix that. They've already fixed the hair. The hair looks real, right? By the way, hi to Sir Jed 01 and Mom Jen 383 from Joseph Rupert.
Wow.
Good morning. Si
Hello.
Renz Edgar Agapito III ug si Nugent Sanchez Santa Teresa regard to 01 and 383. Kaning mga numero mo ni inyong mga
Call
call
signs.
call signs sa radio,
Correct.
sa radio,
Yes,
di ba?
sa radio, yes.
What do you call it? VHF ba na siya?
We're operating on the UHF.
UHF
frequencies, yes.
frequency. So that's how you communicate, right?
Correct.